evening. Thank you so much for coming out on this very cold night. My name is Jenelle Riley. I'm the film and TV editor of Backstage. It's truly my honor to present this SAG conversation with actor Forest Whitaker. No, not yet. Oh, yeah, well, it's funny, you know, this is literally a man who needs no introduction, but I worked really hard on this, so he's gonna get one. Whitaker is an actor, producer, director. On screen, I would say he's known for his sensitivity, gentility, and vulnerability. However, in the year 2006, he certainly showed us another side with his performance as Lieutenant John Kavanagh on FX's The Shield and in a film called The Last King of Scotland. For his role in this film as dictator Idi Amin, I gotta read these. He has already won Best Actor from the National Board of Review, the Broadcast Film Critics Association, awards from critics groups in Chicago, Dallas, Fort Worth, Florida, Washington, D.C., Boston, Los Angeles. I think they're inventing new awards for him. And as of 24 hours ago, a Golden Globe Award. Please welcome Forest Whitaker.
Thank you for coming. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for giving me some time to get water. So first of all, congratulations on the Golden Globe last night. I know actors always claim to be surprised, but you look genuinely stunned.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great moment. I mean, I didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, no matter what people say, I mean, I didn't know what was going to happen. So I heard my name and I was thrown, you know.
With all the accolades and awards you've been receiving, I mean, you had to at least have an idea that you had a shot.
Well, no, I was nominated, so you know, I knew I had a shot, but I wasn't quite sure. I wasn't quite sure what would happen, really, because you never really know, really. So.
One of the first things I noticed was that as soon as your name was announced, the first two people who got to their feet were Jack Nicholson and Dustin Hoffman. I don't know if you're aware of that or not.
I was like kind of spaced out for a second.
That must be an amazing feeling to have the respect of these peers, these great actors supporting you.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for telling me. I haven't got a chance to see it. I didn't know that. So it's a beautiful thing. I have a lot of respect for both of them. So.
Well, I hope you TiVoed it, so
yeah, no,
you can go back and watch it.
Yeah.
So while we're on the topic of The Last King of Scotland, I'm curious how this script came to you and what it was about the character or the person of Idi Amin that spoke to you.
Well, I mean, when I got a chance, if originally someone talked to me about the book like years ago, but the project just disappeared. You know, I wasn't involved with it. I wasn't involved in moving it forward. And then like about 5 or 6 years later, I was approached again to meet. They found a new director, Kevin MacDonald, who was a documentary director, and the producers felt confident, but he didn't feel that I was necessarily right for the part. So I was working with. He asked me to come in and read something. I was nervous because I just had a day to prepare, and I knew it would take me a while to really figure out the character. But I called up Bob Easton and I said, you know, I really like to do some accent work here because I think it's a key into the character. I don't know if I can be ready, but if I feel okay, I'll do it. And then we worked on it, and I went in. I read for Kevin. Like it was like 2 or 3 scenes. It's audition for him.
Do you? I know he called it a work session, which I guess is a nice word for audition.
He called it a work session just so you try to make you. I don't know, but it was really an audition because if you don't have a job, you go in and work with the director, then it's an audition. So, you know, it's about what it is, you know. And luckily he decided. And then after that, the producers, I think in London, not the actual producers, but the the financing company. They talked about wanting to see something, and at that time it was more like I wanted to know, for Kevin to know if I could play the role, and for him to feel comfortable. It's his first movie. He's a first-time director too, and I understood if that role didn't work for him in his film, then the movie wouldn't work so well, and so I did it.
Did he say why he didn't think you might be right for the role?
I think he thought that, as you described me, that he didn't know if I would have the anger, the intensity, I guess. Thought that he was used to me playing, in his mind, like gentler characters. Although I've played like a lot of different types of people. I think what I try to do, or what I do is I do look for the humanity, or the little thing that connects me with them. And so as a result, even if someone's doing a reprehensible thing, sometimes people seem to, because even in Panic Room, that character is kind of reprehensible in a way, even though he's going through a struggle of conscience. He does put gas inside of this room with this little girl who's diabetic, But I think I do search for that connection. I don't search to try to make them nice. I just search for whatever it is inside that connects us, and that's what comes out.
Now, I talked to Kevin, and he said when you came in for the work session / audition, you scared him, frankly. Do you remember this?
I didn't know he was scared. I mean, he sure was a good actor. I mean, he just kind of stared, you know what I mean? And I got, afterwards he said that was really good. And then later I found out that he really wanted me to do it. And because I don't know how many people he auditioned. I think he auditioned some people in Uganda, which in London and here too, which would make sense, especially in Uganda, because I would think that even though they have a small theater community there, and I would think that would only be right for him to do that.
He said he saw a lot of actors for the role, and the only one he would reveal was Puff Daddy. was apparently very interested in the part at one point. Yeah.
No, I didn't know. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Probably would have been a very different film.
It might have been cool. You never know. I think.
So after the work session with Kevin, I think the producers, wanted to put you on tape.
Yeah.
And
another, like I said, the financiers, I think, at DNA. Because the two, Andrea Calderwood and Lisa Breyer, I think they felt comfortable, but I think the DNA, they wanted to know what was going on, and I just, I felt that I showed Kevin what I could do with the character, and so ultimately they decided to let me play the part.
So did you say no? You weren't going on tape?
Yeah. But not because I would have been okay if me and Kevin had done it. But I prepared all that work. I got in already. I geared myself up and I did it. And he told me he called it a work session. And now if it's a work session, why are you saying why aren't on tape for the producers? The financiers in London. They should have just told me what it was. I didn't have a problem auditioning at all. If it's something I believe in and the director doesn't feel comfortable. It's tough, to do something right sometimes in a short amount of time. Everyone knows, it just takes a lot. Mm-hmm. And particularly when it's a character sometimes that doesn't have a lot to say or do, when it's a simpler character. And so when you go in, you don't know if you've conveyed the whole character in like this little moment. So I had no problem with it. It's just the way they went about it,
Well, luckily they came to their senses, but did you ever worry that, you were essentially going to lose the role?
Yeah, I didn't know, I was nervous about the character anyway too, because it was a lot to undertake for me, and I didn't know. I didn't know what would happen, honestly, until late. And it took like a long time after that before they actually gave me the job. It was like, I don't know, a month or so. And I think luckily I was doing something else, and so I couldn't focus my attention completely on it. I don't remember,
So once they came to their senses and hired you, how did you go about researching and preparing to play Idi Amin?
The first stuff I started doing was working on the accent and working on Kiswahili, because I thought that it was going to be a key, because I needed to sort of trick myself into thinking that it was my first language and that English was my second, so then I would be able to understand the way he talked. And the thing about accents sometimes for me is that it helps me figure out how I move. It helps me figure out how I behave. Because I think that for me, the key to an accent has always been to find the way the person thinks and the way the person and moves and gestures. Or the accent really not complete. Sometimes if you see something that seems like something's wrong and it sounds perfect, it's probably because it's not organically inside the system. And because words come with gestures, words come with movements and thoughts. And I mean, Bob worked with me in LA and we broke the script down. But then when I went to Uganda, Daniel, who was like my guide there, Daniel Sateva, he really helped me enter into the culture and helped me figure out how to use the words and how it would affect the way I moved and how to use words in different ways in the same word, like we do, and so that was a big key in. And then when I got there, I was just trying to take in the place because I wanted to understand what it was like to be Ugandan. So I started compiling, I guess, experiences. I started just going places and doing things, walking through the streets, going, I started to visit people that knew him, his brothers and his sisters, and his generals and ministers, his girlfriends, and people on the street that would talk to me. But it wasn't just that, because I think I needed to understand what it was like to be African, in a way, at the core of it, which is already what he was, Then he's Ugandan, and then he's like Kakwa, and then he's and so I was trying to take the place in, because it's a different culture for me. I'd never been, I'd never been to Africa. I'd always wanted to, but this gave me the perfect opportunity.
And I heard you learned to play the accordion?
I turned the accordion in LA. I started, because he played this sort of button pushing one, and I learned how to play the accordion, and then we worked up some songs, and when I got to Uganda, I played some of them for Kevin, and then he liked this one that was sort of, it had a little bit of Arabic kind of feeling too, and then with Daniel, I wrote these like kind of lyrics, because I wanted it to be sort of colonial song, but it was in Kiswahili. He didn't really know what I was saying at the time, But it was just a song about like, there's a bird that's coming in to eat up all of our seeds, and what do we do with this, this bird, And so Daniel helped me with the melody, and he really, I think he really like formed the melody of it, because it really had this sort of really Islamic kind of feeling to it a little bit inside of it. And I played it for Kevin, and I did it, And it really helped me, because when I was playing it all the time in my room, it kind of helped me figure out how to breathe, because it's kind of a breathing instrument. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to figure out how he might, breathe and stuff like that.
So what was harder, learning the accent or learning to play the accordion?
Accordion wasn't that hard. I liked it. I mean, it makes sense that it goes up and down, and then it was push button. It wasn't the kind where you have to play the piano keys. He never played that kind, because he wasn't really that good, So, that's the truth.
Is that something you learned in your research? He was a bad accordion player?
Well, they had asked me not to play as well as I had been taught. Really? Because on the tape you can see him, and when you watch him, he's not always really touching the keys. He's kind of just hitting the side and just kind of moving it back and forth, and so you can't notice that he's not really playing what the band playing, but he's and so. But if you know how to play that little accordion, then you know that you have to press those buttons. So, so I just like simplified it a little bit,
I think most people probably had a very specific image of Amin being sort of this monster, and you portrayed him as very charismatic and charming, and you can understand why the James McAvoy character falls into his inner circle. Was it hard to access these characteristics in a man, known for such brutality?
Well, I did study, although I didn't try to copy him, I did study all kinds of, there's a lot of documentary tapes on Idi Amin. Idi Amin was a real showman, so he let people follow him around. He let Barbie Schroeder follow him around for almost 2 years. And he had him in all these different situations. And so you could see him dealing with his cabinet. You could see him when he gets paranoid, or at least the way I interpreted that he was becoming paranoid at certain moments when he was nervous and talking in front of a group of doctors or a crowd of people, and his eyes, the way he moves his eyes. And so you can watch it, but you really see his charisma, and you really see his humor, and his joking, and everyone had that story about him. And that's kind of how he rose. And so my biggest thing was to understand how he thought. Because I didn't approach it like I'm about to play a monster. I truly didn't. I was like, so who is this guy? What does he think? Why is he making these choices? And then things would start to kind of compile themselves. Like, I mean, like if I met with his brother in Arua, and he'd tell me, well, whenever he came here, he used to like have a party, and he'd bring out his accordion and sing for everybody, and he would play here in the village, and they would have a soccer game. And then I would talk to these elders at a meta plantation, and they would say, oh, well, he always protected the other kids, you know, and he was the one that was the brightest one, you know, but he loved to play here in the yard here, and, you know, other stories. But then I start to, as I was there with the Kakwa elders, these are people that knew him, so, and his brother, and I'm sitting at the farm he grew up. So then you kind of get your own memories, and your own body is filling with memories. You're smelling the air, you're touching the earth, you're eating. I mean, literally, there's like mangoes falling out on your feet, like you're sitting there under the tree, you know. And then you're looking at the script, and you're trying to understand what he must feel like when he becomes isolated, because he's a very social person. You know, the instrument was important to understand, because accordion is like a party instrument. You know, it's like an instrument you can carry with you in other countries, and you sit down and you can just play. You know. And so, as the movie goes along, I start to assess when I'm starting to lose this friendship and be surrounded by people that don't like me. When you're a person who was like the rugby champion, you know, like on the national rugby team, heavyweight boxing champion, and he was the most loved soldier in the army by the British, you know. And so then it starts to inform, what will that make me feel like when I feel like I'm completely alone, and more and these people don't like me, more and more these people hate me, I'm more and more isolated. And so those little stories, combined with taking them in as experiences for myself, start to help me, you know, shape the character. It's one part of how I started to shape the character in all the different areas, you know, because I kept the research going all the way through to the last day of shooting. I didn't really stop, because I was there and research is all around me.
Was there anything that you were surprised to learn about him in particular during your research?
I was surprised at the way the Ugandans viewed him, you know, but that helped me too, because there was this weird like reconciliation, this sort of duality about it. They like, on one side they would say this man killed, because there was a number of people that worked on the film who had relatives who were killed under Idi Amin, you know. And then, but then they would also, like the minister, he was Jonah Waswa, Stephen Winchezi. He runs the biggest theater in Uganda, you know, in Dairy Troop. It's the biggest theater in Uganda. And he'll say, he doesn't like Idi Amin, but he'll say, but I would not have a theater, and I would not be doing theater. There was no theater for Ugandans before Idi Amin. And so I started to try to understand it, because, you know, he kicked the ex-pates out, the English out, and started theater. He really did. He auditioned the plays, and then he put the plays in the theater. And so I started trying to understand this and his passions for different things. And so it started to direct me to living in certain passions. This duality that they held him in helped me understand who he was some ways too. Mm-hmm.
You shot the movie on location in Uganda. How important was that to making the film?
Well, I couldn't have played the character the same way if I wasn't in Uganda. I mean, like I said, I was like, one day I might go to where they say the cave of the first man is, you know, and it seems like it has no reference to the character, but for me it did, because I was trying to understand this place, and like he says, you know, Uganda embraces, just trying to make Uganda a part of me. So I went there and I took off my shoes and I go inside. I'm sitting there with Daniel and Colin, and there's a feeling you get, you know. And then if I'm working, I go to work, and then if I'm off work, I'll go, you know, to the source of the Nile, or I'll go here. I would just go until finally I said to Daniel, I said, what else is there for me to see? You know, now, you know, where should you take me? Where do you want to take me? Because it became a game for them. It was like fun, you know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna show you someplace. I got something for you, you know. And then finally, at the very end, I went on like a mini safari thing at the very, very end, right before I did the final speech. And I think it was helpful, because in the tape you can see, I only wanted to deal with the people, you know, and like understand the cultures and stuff. But in the tape you see him going down the same river that I went down, and talking to the crocodiles and telling them, you know, say hi, you know, Jambo Rafiki, Jambo, and they make their little thing, and he said, "See, he answers you." You know what I mean? And I finally got there, and I tried, I was talking to them too, and so it kind of gave me a feeling. So when I'm up there and I'm talking about Uganda, I understand the beauty of Uganda. I understand the little crevices of Uganda. I understand when I say I want to build better schools, because I've been to the schools where there's just where the floor is covered with cow dung to stop the dust, but that's where they study. That's where the kids, you go in and they're sitting there on the floor. And so when you say something like that and you have that kind of thought in your head too, plus your own feelings, because ultimately all that stuff, it's technical work. In some ways it's emotional work, but then I guess it's the spiritual work that has to happen for me to make the character's spirit be alive. Mm-hmm. And that work is probably the most important work, and it kind of pulls these two things together for me. That's just the way I do it, the way I go about it, and I do go through the same amount of process on that probably as I do on the other.
I know martial arts is a really important aspect of your life, and you mentioned before that you drew on some of your knowledge of martial arts to inform your acting. Could you talk about that a little?
Well, in general, like when I was young and I used to study martial arts, my instructor would always be talking about the different ways to get to the target, to get to the point. And so I guess I learned about energy, and I learned about taking different routes to get to a destination, about all the different choices that a person can make to go there. And I think in this movie, I worked very hard on it, because my Sifu, Joe, he pushed me really hard, because I needed to understand what it was like to feel like a warrior, to feel the power. And I do mostly combat arts like Filipino Kali, Muay Thai, Wing Chun, and Western boxing, And so when we're sparring, and he would bring people for me to spar, he kept saying to me, and he taught me a great lesson, he kept saying to me, "Why do I keep feeling your energy going back?" Because I would be fighting, and I'm right in here, and I get frightened because he's so intense, He used to be the Muay Thai champion. I'm looking in his eyes, and I'm like trying to stay, and I'm feeling the pain, and he kept pushing me, like, "Stop moving back." I said, "I'm not moving back." He said, "I feel it, I feel you moving back, you know what I mean? And you have to embrace being here." And I said, "But when you hit me here, just so much pain, and like I'm hitting you, and I can't, and so he would say, that because when I hit you with this finger, I've already hit past you, I'm already through you. My intent is so strong that I've already exited out of you already, And so it was an important lesson for me to learn while I was working on this character, In general, for my acting, I think it'll help me in general. But that in this particular case, he knew I was working on this character, and he knew I wanted to feel more iron, And he wouldn't allow me to step backwards. So in a way, he was coaching me or working with me in a different way, and making me feel comfortable with the pain, and also looking at my fear, because I would become afraid, because not only mostly with him, not with the other Sifus that come in, but with him, I look in his eyes, and it looked like a pit bull's eyes, like when they look when you're playing with them and you're jerking them around, and they have that look in their eye, and you can realize something went click, And they're good dogs, but it's just like they enjoy it. I had a really great one once, and but he has that look when he's fighting me, and he never would ever. I could never tell if I was even affecting him, and so it was something I was working on for this character, in specific.
Do you do that with all your characters, or was this sort of a special case?
No. In that case, that particular thing was luckily I progressed where I could be at that sparring level with him, and also it was what was needed, because I really shift what I do based on what I'm doing. I don't always take the same, like I say, like same approach. Sometimes I go a different route. I'll start off totally different. Maybe I'll just be like, oh, no, I don't. I started to trust myself though. I'd be like, Dad, don't look at it, don't look at it, don't look at the script. Like, okay, look at it, and then I'm like, do this, just figure out what you're thinking. Don't worry about any of what you're trying to do. Oh, just do that. I don't know. It depends on what I'm doing. I'm still learning, trying to find my approach. I just figured something out. I'm gonna keep trying that until I figure out something better.
Now, you mentioned you got to meet with Amin's friends and family. Were they open to talking to you, or most of them, I should ask?
Well, his son, Taban, I had set up like 5 meetings with him. He's a general in Uganda, but he always canceled at the last minute, so I never really got to meet him. So his family had different feelings. His brother, I had to talk to him for a long time before, because when I flew into Arua near the Sudanese border, and they brought me to one man's house, and I had to sit with him and just talk for a long time before he would feel comfortable to bring me to the other house. It turned out that this man was Idi Amin's minister, but I didn't know that at the time. I was just talking with him and having tea, you know what I mean? He was asking me questions. And then we went to meet his brother, and his brother was really, really didn't want to do it at all, because he thought I was about to, because his brothers, they're so poor, his family. They live in like a bombed out building in the middle of, this sort of farm with just little potato patches on it. They were like having these long debates about how to get medicine for his sister's foot, you know what I mean? So he didn't have anything. And so he's thinking that I'm gonna come and take more, which is like make people think about him being not a good person or not, you know what I mean? So I finally, after like a long time talking, I remembered I had this paper from secretary and someone in the government, and I gave it to him, and then he read it, and he said, oh, well, this here is very important, why didn't you tell me? And that was how I first, and then he asked me some more questions, and I told him my whole reason for coming here is so that I can understand Idi Amin better. I'm not coming here to make it do something worse. I'm coming here to try to make him a whole person, And that was, that paper, like one of the things like Colin taught me, it was like my driver. I went to his house for dinner, and I remember, like, he said, would you meet my mother? And these are things, I know, for me, it was a part of me figuring out the character, even though he was my friend, but later I realized it was such a big thing for me to understand, because he'd bring me in and we're gonna have dinner, and I go in and I meet his mother, who's not well, and we sit and we talk. And he says the children are gonna show you something, and they start doing this sort of hip hop Afro dance, And I'm like, that's cool. And then we go eat. Dad sits down, and we're sitting there. Then I go outside and have this soda with his dad, and he shows me the plants. And I come back inside, and then this is what I'm getting back to the letter. Then he said, and I'm talking to his mother again. He comes back in with this paper, and he says, I want to give you this paper. And I said, oh, okay, And he says, it's got all of our names on it and the date, so that you'll remember this moment, And I don't know, it's just really profound in me. It was like so beautiful, It's like a notebook paper, but it was something about it, It's just, it really made me understand something about the culture. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That I needed to understand, to play the part.
Do you know, has his brother seen the film and given you any kind of feedback?
We're going to show the movie in February in Uganda for the first time.
Are you nervous about that, or?
I'm a little nervous, yeah. I was nervous, because that was the thing about it's great to be in Uganda because everybody's got the accent, but it's also when you're like saying speeches and stuff, they all know Idi Amin. They all like know if the accent is wrong. They all know if it's not, so it's kind of, it's good, for me it worked out, but it's.
Is it different when you're playing a real person? I mean, do you feel this pressure to make sure it's not just an imitation? And so many people have access to footage of the real Idi Amin. Does that put an extra layer of pressure on you?
It did, because it's important to Ugandan people and to the continent Africa as well. And it's important too, like as an African American, when you project certain kinds of images without depth or without clarity. Doesn't mean I won't play a murderer or a gun dealer or any drug dealer, no problem. But if I can show what's under it, in this case, Idi Amin is much more than that, you know what I mean? My interest is how to show the whole of the person.
So once you were actually on the set, did you stay in character between takes? I mean, how deeply immersed were you in this role?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't really let go of the accent too much because, well, mostly because I was working on it all the time, so much in my room, working on it, with Colin working on it. And it wasn't the kind of character you can come in, for me, I couldn't just walk in and just say, okay, ready? I just couldn't do it, Maybe one day I'll have skills like that, I don't know, Not yet,
And I think you only ate Ugandan food?
Yeah, because I was hanging with Daniel and Colin all the time, and I wanted to eat the same stuff he was eating, and I was trying to, again, it's a part of culture, it's a part of understanding the culture. Because at first you eat the food and you're like, oh, okay, it's nice. Then after a while, it's like eating rice, and you eat different kinds of, eat the same rice, same white rice, but some white rice is different than other white rice. Some tastes better, And so if you eat it like, motoki, which is like banana, boiled banana, some of it's better than, sometimes boiled. So you start to, get an understanding of stuff, you know what I mean? And you actually have a preference. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, because if I didn't hang with them, try to do it, then I would make choices. I remember, when I walk I'm in my bedroom, and I walk in, I sit on the floor, and the director's like, oh, whoa, I need to sit up on the thing. I said, what? I'm in my bedroom. He's like, sit on the thing. I said, yeah, but I think he would sit on the floor, I mean, can I sit on the floor? I mean, he's like, okay, let me see, because it changed the whole, it's like, but it became a natural thing, just like when I eat, it became a natural thing, so that if I'm eating, it becomes natural what I put together with the food or the way I eat it, or if I don't like this part, or, you know what I mean? That's why I was there. I just kind of gave myself over to the experience.
I know you're a vegetarian, and I don't know if that, I forgive my ignorance about Ugandan food, but I don't know if that made it harder for you to only eat Ugandan food, or?
The Ugandans eat they have probably the culture that eats the most starch on the planet. So I have plenty of food to eat. It's matoki and potatoes and all kinds of stuff, and then a lot of it like millet and different things that they make and stuff. Which is really good, especially with, the bean sauce and everything. It's pretty good.
Can you find good Ugandan food in Los Angeles?
I don't know I guess in somebody's home,
tried?
maybe. Yeah. No, I haven't went searching, but I like it.
Yeah.
Especially when I think about the place, sometimes I get like, oh man, I wouldn't mind having some of it,
So at the end of the day, was this a character you were able to leave and just go about your life, or did you take your work home with you in this case?
I mean, I try to get rid of the character like the moment that it was done. I mean, I try to, shift my voice, because I was talking a lot lower, and I just kind of go through like a ritual in my mind that I'm like cleaning the character off me by like taking a shower and like pushing my voice back to normal and just like letting it go. I mean, every character it's like going any place and you do something over and over again. Like if you go live in New York for a year or two, you get a word here, a word there that sticks with you, like, or if you're in the South, or, you know what I mean? So like there's little things, but that's what I try to get rid of it. And then when I started working soon, I was working on this little independent film improv movie. And I had to get ready for that character. Even though it was improv, it was a totally different person. So it's a professor. And so.
Now, I talked to some of your co-stars, and specifically Kerry Washington, who plays one of Amin's wives, and she says they were a little afraid of you, honestly, because you were so deeply immersed in this character, and they were also concerned for you because you seemed to be so deep into playing Amin. Were you aware of how immersed you had become? Were you aware you were scaring them?
I didn't know that till the Q&As.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I saw them and we talked and stuff, but I didn't know that. I think that, you know, I just would come on the set getting ready to do the character. I wasn't like if I was going, we were past each other in a hotel, like yelling command. I mean, I wasn't, I was just, it was like I'm going into a really intense scene, you know, and this character doesn't have too many. He lives in intensity and passion, so that's the way I would come into the scene. I had to get myself geared up to be able to go into a scene like that. So when I walked in, you know, it was like that. But I mean, James and Kerry both. I mean, they told me too that it was really helpful to them to find. And for me, like James, I thought, you know, I did most of my stuff with James. He was an amazing actor, and I don't know, I thought he was great.
Absolutely. So for you, what was the hardest part of the shoot? A particular scene, maybe, or just maybe something behind the scenes as an actor?
I think just trusting it, you know, like bringing the spirit part of it, his energy. Because like I said, I wasn't trying to copy him. I wanted to capture his spirit. You know what I mean? And so I might choose a gesture of his to help me find his spirit, you know, or to speak a certain way to help me find his spirit. But it's just trying to put all that together organically, you know, as just a part of me as opposed to things, you know. So that was the tough part about it.
Was it hard to understand? I mean, some of his, he gave himself that crazy title. Do you know the one I'm talking about?
The titles are very important.
Yeah. What was it?
In Africa, it's like, it's very important. People don't like shortchange like when they've made an accomplishment. So if you learn the culture, you start to see, you know. And so if he's the president of the country, like it was one point where he wouldn't allow anybody else to be called president. Mm-hmm. Like you couldn't be the president of the hospital. You know, like, you know, you had to have another title, you know what I mean? And so, because titles were very important, and that's one of the reasons why you see him with all the epaulets on his chest. Yeah. Many of which he earned, and many of which he gave to himself because, you know, he was the president, you know?
Here's the title I found. His Excellency President for Life, Field Marshal Dr. Idi Amin, VC, DSO, MC, Lord of all the beasts of the earth and fishes of the sea, and conqueror of the British Empire in Africa in general and Uganda in particular.
That is one of his, that is it.
That's the title that he gave himself.
It's not complete inclusive. There's other ones too. that one's, a lot of people had to learn that one.
Do you think that was an indication of maybe his, you know, mind starting to slip a little from him, or
no? I think because he had a humongous sense of humor, and also he took himself seriously, and and he, no, I don't think so. I think it's really hard because I think when that many people die or that many people are killed, certainly there's a certain psychosis and that follows along with it, you know. But the thing is that he was a soldier for 25 years. I talked to Moses Ali, who was one of his generals. He said there was nothing that Idi Amin thought was more important than being a soldier, you know. Not the presidency, none of it. And so for 25 years, the British watched him. For 25 years, they promoted him. He was one of 2 soldiers that they sent to Sandhurst, which is the West Point in London. And he trained with the Israeli paratroopers for 25 years. So if they had observed this sort of psychotic, insane behavior, they would never, because he didn't want to be the president, they would never have put him in power. Now, he fought in the Mau Mau's, the Connie massacres and stuff, and he did display a great deal of brutality. I think they should have taken note of that. I think they misunderstood what it means to be an African father, because when they made him the president of the country, he was a father responsible for the children. And as a result, that's a problem. So he tried to do this stuff, then they started to desert him. And when he started to feel like they were deserting him, he started feeling more and more isolated, people trying to destroy him, becoming more and more paranoid, more and more afraid. And as a soldier, he starts to think that he has enemies. Really, they were trying to kill him. Mm-hmm. Every country around him hated him. They thought he was an idiot, you know? And the last president was staying in this country trying to overthrow the country. So he becomes paranoid, then he kicks the British out. And so all of a sudden, he says, these are my enemies. I have to destroy my enemies. He's my enemy, destroy my enemy. Please don't tell me. If you see that they're a traitor, just kill them, tell me later. I'll be happy. That's what he told to his cabinet. You can see it on tape, it's in the documentary. It's in the Barbie Schroeder documentary where he says that particular quote to his ministry. Because as Moses would say, a lot of the things he actually didn't know about. But he gave people power and autonomy to do certain things that were horrendous. And then he did also horrendous things himself. So it's horrible.
Did you know this going into it, or did you sort of have an image of him as kind of a buffoon, you know, or a monster? And then were you surprised to find that you sort of had this empathy for what he was going through?
Well, I mean, I had to try to understand what to play him. I had to understand what his motivations and thoughts were. You know, it doesn't make him right, but I had to understand that, you know. Yeah, I only knew of him like as a kid, like this, you know, big, you know, guy, you know, African man with all these epaulets and looking angry and everybody saying that he was insane. That was the only kind of image I had been told as a kid. So when I started to do the, you know, the research and stuff, I started to understand a little bit more about the political side of it as well, because it was politically motivated, a great part of it.
So did playing this role change you as a person?
It changed me as a person because I think it changed my work. I think my work is growing. I think it you know, I'm African American. I had never been to Africa. It made me have a sense of self, I think, in a way. Be able to touch back to ancestry like that. You know, it's not something that I had before, really. And politically, I think it opened my mind a little bit, opened me up more clearly to the maneuvers that happen, you know, in the world, or particularly from the Western point of view onto others.
I want to go back to the beginning of your career. You attended USC on a football scholarship. At what point did you make the transition into acting, or was that always the intention?
No, I went to Pomona, and I went to USC on a music scholarship.
Oh, it was a music scholarship.
Yeah.
Damn IMDb. Never believe anything you read on the internet.
No, I was singing. You know, I thought I might go into singing, and then I thought this isn't gonna deal with the people that I grew up with. Nobody's gonna see any of it. So, because I was studying classical voice, and I auditioned for, my speech teacher for singing asked me to audition for the play, and I auditioned for Under Milkwood, and she cast me as one of the managers, you know, and that's how I acted for it, really. And then the same teacher, Pomona, helped me prepare an audition to get into the acting program at USC, and then I was accepted with Duncan Ross, and I was accepted in the music program at the same time. I got the music scholarship to be able to go to school, because I needed some scholarship in order to go to school. I couldn't pay for it otherwise. So,
was this the first time that you would consider that you could do this for a living?
Acting?
Yeah.
I think in the beginning I wasn't sure if it was right for me. You know, I think for a long time I kept trying to figure out if I could do it, would be good enough. You know what I mean? You know, even when I was at USC, I did my first movie, but I didn't think it was, because I did Fast Times, and I didn't feel, you know, so I left LA, and I went back to school again, because it felt too distracting, and because they was trying to send me out for this little thing where I was scared I was gonna just be bad, So I went back to conservatory up in San Francisco or Berkeley, and then I came back again, and then I started working on stage. But I don't know if in the beginning I was thinking it was gonna be able to make money, a lot of money doing it. At that time I didn't really care. I figured I'd be able to, maybe I could work and I could act on stage. I was hoping I could go to New York and be on stage. That was like my dream. I was like, oh, I'm gonna go and be a stage actor, and I haven't got a chance to do that yet.
Did you have any role models when you were starting out acting? Actors whose careers you could kind of look at to emulate?
There were like amazing performances that I thought, like I remember when Robert De Niro did Raging Bull. I remember thinking that was like amazing, and Pacino did like Scarface. That was later, but even earlier, like in Justice for All, I remember he's like, I'm out of order, we're out of order, it's home. It's like, so it's kind of cool, But I not like someone that I just followed like that, like everything, it was just different performances. Like I remember, like even throughout my career, like I remember moments you remember, like when, when Robert Duvall says, I never trust happiness, never have, never will, at the end of Tender Mercies. It's such an amazing way he does it. And because it was such in conflict with what he was doing, it seemed so amazing, I mean, as a kid, I didn't have a lot of, it's particularly, I had Sidney Poitier as black actors, and then in the 70s, there was like these movies like Cotton Comes to Harlem and all these movies. So, but when I was really little, there was no concept that I was gonna be able to go into acting. It was Sidney Poitier, who was this amazing man who sang like the song and acted in these amazing movies, and he was different than me. And I thought, like growing up in South Central, you like look at this man. I hadn't hardly met anybody like that. I don't think I had met anyone like him at that time. My universe existed in probably 4 blocks. Mostly from my house to the school and to the corner liquor store to get like Chico sticks or something from my uncle, you know what I mean? So it wasn't.
I remember Chico sticks.
That was kind of. So I didn't really. It wasn't like a childhood dream because it didn't seem like something that was even a possibility, And then when I moved to Carson, my parents moved to Carson. A kid across the street got a job in a movie, Anthony, and I remember we all went to the drive-in to see him in this movie, and I'm thinking, wow, he's in the movie, you know what I mean?
Do you remember what movie it was?
I can't remember the name of the movie. He was the lead, though.
Really?
Yeah, he was like, I was just like, it blew us away. We were sitting there, and we're like, wow, we go over and we saw you in the movie, And he didn't act after that much, but I guess that's the first touch I ever saw that people were doing that. It's not like, for me, it was separate.
So you didn't get to go to New York and be a big Broadway star. You started doing film and TV instead. How did that come about?
Well, when I left Pomona to go to USC, I did this light opera called the Beggar's Opera, and it was at the Orpheum. There used to be a theater called the Orpheum, and an agent was in the audience, and I was singing, and he asked if he could represent me, and I told him I was about to go to USC, and he started to represent me as an actor, and I went to school, and a lot of my classmates, were working, really working, not like me. I was, it was all new for me, and because Ali Sheedy was in my class, and Anthony Edwards was in my class, and Eric Stoltz was in class above me. It was like those famous kind of schools things at the time, and like a performing arts school, with bandanas or something. And but anyway, that's when I got my first agent. That's when I started working, and I did Fast Times. A bunch of us in class did Fast Times together.
Was there like a particular moment that you would consider sort of your big break, where you realized this was going to be your career?
Maybe I felt good after Bird. But that
Really?
was pretty
That far
long.
down.
Yeah.
Because even before Bird, I think one of the roles that first really caught a lot of people's attention was The Color of Money.
Clint saw Color of Money. I think that must have been before. Because see, I did Color of Money, but I was like a day player. You know, I came in and I worked for a day and a half.
Yeah.
I did the one scene.
It's one scene, but you hustle Paul Newman. and it's very memorable. You're working with Martin Scorsese. I mean, was that at all intimidating?
I had really wanted to work with him because I had to fly myself to Chicago. You know, they fired someone because he couldn't play pool, and you know, and they asked me if I'd be willing to fly myself to Chicago and audition, and I was like, it's a chance to work with Martin Scorsese, so I got some money and bought a ticket and flew to Chicago and auditioned for him. I
hope they reimbursed you.
After I got the job.
Okay. How did they know you could play pool? Was that listed as one of your special skills, or?
I couldn't actually. I mean, I just like, I kept saying, so when do they need me? And he's like, well, a few weeks. And I was like, okay, tell him I play really, really well. You know? so I just like went to the pool all day long and like played pool all day, you know. But that was the first thing he made me do, though. He wouldn't let me read the lines. He said, I need to see you play pool. And luckily, I had been playing, and I played that. It was a 9-ball champion, and luckily the 9-ball champion was trying to convince him to use 8-ball in the movie, and so I got to play the 9-ball champion 8-ball, and it was so many opportunities, you know, to shoot the ball in, you know. It was a good break. God was with me. And it seemed like I could really play, but that's you know. And then after that, then I read for him, and then they gave me the job later.
And then you went on to do films like Platoon and Stakeout, and of course Good Morning Vietnam. And you were playing supporting roles, but you always managed to stand out in ensemble films. Is there a key to that, or do you just go in and do the work and hope for the best?
This is a good question, I guess. I don't. I guess I just think about. I just work on the character. The thing I used to do, like I was so obsessive, you know, like then, and like even if it was like one line, you know, I would go through all these things about it. You know, I like be in my room and I would work up the character. I'd figure out how he thought, how I felt about everybody, if I was gonna bump into somebody, what I feel. I was like all this stuff, you know, like actor stuff, you know what I mean? That they teach you, you know, and so I wouldn't really enter. I would enter the situation full of the character and how I felt and what I was doing and where I was. I think the key was I knew what I was thinking. I knew I was thinking like the person. Why anybody, you know, why, I don't know, stand out or not. Because I think they were great ensemble movies. Mm-hmm. I think we all worked together.
So after that, in 1998, you played the title role in Bird, based on the life of Charlie Parker. This was really your first big lead role, and you went on to win the Best Actor Award at the Cannes Film Festival. Clint said actually not too long ago that just before they announced the winner, he said, you know, you should be prepared to go up there, and you went, pfft. And like, I don't know if that's how you remember it, but that's his version of the story.
Because it never occurred to me that I was going to go. I thought, you know, Clint would win, you know, win something, because everywhere you go, you know, they're screaming his name. Yeah. You know, you're walking through the streets and they're like, Clint, you know. You know, and I was like, at that time I was kind of much more of a hermit, you know. I just kind of did my work and kind of went in. I wasn't very good socially, you know what I mean? And so I was just trying to take it in. I was overwhelmed. There's cameras everywhere, there's cons, you know what I mean? And I don't, you know, it was, luckily I brought my little brother with me, you know? And so it kind of centered me a little bit, and we could go, look at stuff. But so I didn't. Never occurred to me. I'm telling you. You know what I mean? And so when it happened, I was so surprised. I think Clinton and them knew. I think they know, like they knew the politics. If people ask you to stay, or if you don't, if they say, "Oh, we'd really like you to be there for dinner," then maybe that means something. But I didn't know any of that stuff. You know what I mean? So they got all the advisors, and he's a great man though. He's a great guy.
And how did that role come about? I assume you auditioned for him, or had he'd seen your work?
What he'd seen The Color of Money, but I didn't audition for him, in the sense. I mean, I auditioned for him, but he didn't feel comfortable auditioning actors, so he would just have someone else put you on tape, and then he would look at the tape. And so when I first met him, it was after he had looked at the tape, and then he was like, "Okay, talk to me about jazz and music." And I did play music instruments, and I did, we were talking about jazz. And I thought when I left, I was like, he didn't say he had the job. I don't think. So I thought I got the job, because he's acting me like we're working on the part already, which doesn't always mean, that you got the job. But I kept calling. I called my agent. I was like, I think I got the job. Did I get the job? And it's a while before they confirmed I got the job. And as soon as I got the job, I just ran out, bought a sax, and, tried to figure out how to play it. Make a sound out of it and stuff.
I heard Puff Daddy was up for that one too.
Nah, he's too young.
Again, this was a movie where you're playing a real person, a very flawed person. And how did you go about preparing for the role?
Mostly through the music. Mm-hmm. There's very little film footage of Charlie Parker, so I got books about his posture, watching him in photographs, the way he played, listened to his music all the time, tried to learn how to play the songs, and studying his life, and then looking at the songs during that part of his life and feeling the emotions of what he was playing, because it was improv. So it reflects a little bit of what he's feeling, at the time. So I was trying to figure out that. And then when I was figuring out the notes and stuff, I try to put like feelings on, like thoughts or something inside, like almost writing lyrics to each note. So then when I'm playing, I'm hearing something, and I had woodshedded because I moved downtown LA to a space down there to work on the part, and it was a long time ago, and there wasn't really the community that there is now, but it was the community that I was looking for to figure out how to play the part, and I needed somewhere where I could play the sax 24/7 and not bother anybody. So I moved down there.
Now, I read in Newsweek recently that you fell asleep while filming a crucial scene in Bird. Do you know what they're talking about? And you woke up and didn't realize you were on a film set?
I had my friend Robert, he's my friend from high school, he helped me stay up. I didn't go to sleep for a few days. I had to do these really intense scenes, and they were like really down. I couldn't figure out how to play it. I was scared, I was trying to figure out, how do we play this? You know what I mean? How am I gonna be sick? I was like, okay, I'm gonna be really tired, you know what I mean? And I'm gonna stay up, and I was just trying to find a way. I didn't know what to do, and so then I went in, I was in the scene where I was supposed to die, and I just left Rob, and I went to the set, and they're going up, and they laid me on the couch. And they're getting ready, and so I fell asleep. But it was good because Clint was so sensitive, because it was our scene. Yeah, it was the scene we did, and she's from Bird. We worked on the movie together. So, would you stand up? You should stand up. Come on. The Baroness. And so I fell asleep, and the guy is shaking me. I open up my eyes, I'm looking at him, I'm thinking, you know, oh, who's this guy? You know? and like, and then he's smiling really nice. I smile back, you know. I'm like, you know, and then all of a sudden, you know, because it was like this. So then when I finally looked, I was like, oh shoot, you know, because that's when I saw the crew. It was like I was like, oh, I'm sorry, Clint, you know. And he's like, it's okay, it's all right, go back. So, you know, it was in the scene I did in Diane's, because the Baroness, and play a character Diane played, was a patron of Charlie Parker, and took care of him a lot. And he went there, and ultimately, you know, he died there and stuff.
Now, after Bird, I would think that that probably opened a lot of doors, and you sort of had your pick of roles. You don't look so sure, though. Maybe not.
No, I think, you know, at the time, Cannes Film Festival wasn't so, I don't think watched as much, you know, by the American public. I think it became more popular in the last 10 or so years, you know, when they start, you know, bikini shooting and all this kind of stuff, and people like became a little different, and so the movie didn't make any money, and I think what it did was it made people realize that I was an artist, you know, meaning that I was going to be doing serious work and try my best to do serious work, and I was nominated for a Golden Globe. But again, I didn't know. I remember the guy I left, my manager, was telling me that you have no idea, you don't know what you need my help, and he probably is right, because I didn't know. You know, I just like young guy, like happy to be at the party, you know.
So now, how do you go about choosing your roles?
Same way. You know, I mean, I kind of look at the character and see if I can learn something and grow from it. And, you know, it just influences like some actor or director, but mostly it's my gut, because I've worked a lot with first-time directors too. You know, I've done a number in the last few years even. And it's really like the script and how I feel, and when I meet the director, and, you know, I'll just make a choice.
You've also stepped behind the camera, producing and directing. Was that something you always intended to do, or?
Not really. I mean, I was directing like my classmates. You know, they would ask me to work with them on the scenes sometimes. And then when we left college, Anthony Edwards produced a play that he wanted me to direct. And so I directed this play at the West Coast Playhouse. And I directed Look Back in Anger with him and my classmates, you know? And then I directed another play, and then I didn't go. And then I had been writing when I was in college because of class. They made us write. And this screenplay I wrote, these people at Propaganda were they want to buy the screenplay. And I didn't end up selling it because I didn't really know, and I promised my friend he could star in it, and I really wasn't going to budge from that, you know, and I didn't really know anything about it. But they started asking me to direct videos, and I started directing music videos. And then HBO, you know, as I was working with them, like saw my videos, and they were saying, well, why don't you think about directing something for us? And I wasn't ready. They would, you know, Brian Sibrel would ask me, you know, whenever he'd see me, you know, are you ready yet? And then when I got the script, and I thought, oh, maybe I'll do this one, and I sent it to him like about 5 years after that. And then he sent me a script called Strapped, and I said, okay, I'll do it if I can make the movie about the kid, not about the cop, you know? And they told me, you know, to work on the script. And then I start working on the script to make it about the kids. And it took a long time, but ultimately they made the movie. And Bokeem Woodbine was in it, and Fredros, and also Michael Bean was like, so it was like, that was my first move into directing, and that kind of opened the door up for me to get to direct Waiting to Exhale, which came up later after that.
So you directed Waiting to Exhale in, I believe, 1995, and then directed the film Hope Floats and First Daughter. How do you feel about these movies sort of being categorized as women's films?
Well, I guess, I mean, it's, you know, the main characters are women, you know. No, I never really felt foreign to me. I mean, I didn't really feel like when I was doing Waiting to Exhale that the experiences that they were going through were different than my own feelings in some ways, you know what I mean, about, you know, getting my heart broken, or, and also these were women that I felt I knew. You know, I felt I had met all of them. I knew the relationships. I knew the men, because I was really working hard too to like make the men whole characters as well as I could too. So, I don't know. I don't know.
Is it something different that draws you to want to direct a film versus wanting to act in it, or is it the same thing, the script, the people you can work with?
It's probably a little different. I mean, now I think it's the same, because right now I'm probably going to direct something. When I direct again, that I'll work on the script, and that I'm starting from scratch, so it's going to be a little different, probably type of film than the ones I've directed before.
In addition to directing, I mean, you've worked with so many amazing directors: Oliver Stone, Neil Jordan, Martin Scorsese. What do you think makes a good director?
Passion and vision, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have you ever worked with maybe a director who wasn't so good? And did you learn anything from that experience?
Yeah, I mean, I work with a lot. I mean, my time, they're all different, you know. but I always learned something from each one. There was one guy, I remember him, he kept moving me, you know. Like he would never say, could you move over there? He'd just walk up to you and just move you. It's like, I was getting so frustrated. I was like, dude, just tell me, I'll walk over there, you know what I mean? You know? So, I don't know.
I would like to meet the director who could physically move you somewhere. So when you're about to work with a director, especially I would think a first-time director, are there certain questions you think actors should ask?
I tend to treat the first-time directors, you know, like the same. You know, pretty much I start working on a character and I start asking them questions about, well, I may do this film, thinking about it, and I wanted to ask the director, you know, I was thinking that he's a little from this lower income, but I wanted to be a little obsessive. Maybe I was going to go to this casino that's out in Gardena, because I think that's where the people are that this guy's like, you know, and things like that, you know, and I want to talk to him, you know, just questions, you know, how do you know, but just normal things you try to figure, just trying to figure out the character if I get a chance to have those questions, and if the director wants to get into that, because sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're just kind of like, all right, you know, they don't want to get involved in that.
So in addition to this very active film career, you've been doing a lot of TV. I know you won an Emmy for producing the TNT movie Door to Door. You hosted the Twilight Zone revival on UPN. And you're currently appearing on both The Shield and ER. Or you'll be back for a couple episodes of The Shield, I believe, this year. Mm-hmm. With your film career so busy, did you ever hesitate going back to TV?
Oh yeah, I think maybe I hesitated, you know, in a sense, but then I knew that I needed to go ahead and do it, because I was like, why? Well, what's the deal? And what are you afraid of, you know? Just go and try to do some good work. I thought it was a great thing, because I had been doing so much prep work and so much research, and I thought, okay, you need to stop. You need to trust your instincts and see where it's going and find out where you are as an actor. And I thought a show would like not let me know what's going to happen every week, and I could like respond and have to move, you know, and it would push me, you know, make me see where I am. I mean, I was nervous, you know, but if I'm not a little nervous, then I know nothing's going to really happen anyway. That's good.
So can you address the rumor that you almost took a job on the show Lost?
Nobody told me. You know? No, I mean, I think maybe I was working. I think I was working on the first daughter. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe that's the only thing I think is like I was working on something and they talked to my agents and they said he's not available. But otherwise, I never said. I don't know anything about it.
See, because once again, the ever reliable internet says you were going to play Sawyer.
I don't know where that comes from. You know?
So are you the kind of actor who, can you go back and watch yourself, watch your performances and evaluate them, or do you prefer not to see yourself on screen?
I used to not be able to. I just recently was able to start watching myself on screen.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. As more I directed, the more easier it was for me to start watching myself. Because in the beginning, it was torturous for me to watch myself. It really was painful. And so for a decade, I wouldn't watch myself hardly. I would do it, and when I'd see myself, I'd be like, oh my God, you know, it's horrible. You know what I mean? And, but then I started being able to watch myself more. I think more direct, more producing, judging myself not as. I don't know if I don't judge myself as harshly.
Are you critical of yourself, or do you see things you wish you had done differently?
Yeah, I mean, and you know, just what I'm doing, how I play the part. I think before too, I was like trying to wanted to disappear into the character, but I never felt I could, and I never did. And I was just watching, and then it was just tough. I think I remember. I don't think it's as tough. Like I was just exercising in conservatory where I was in the drama studio, and it's like watching yourself or being looked at was really hard. You know, I think earlier on for me. You know, and in my class, and they did the exercise, you know, put the guy, you be an actor, and you sit there in front of the class, and you just like sit there and like everybody stares at you. and it's like, but you can't do anything, and you have to be yourself. And half the class would break down into tears. They couldn't bear it. They couldn't bear it. They were sitting there, everybody's looking at them, they're watching people look at their every move. They're trying to be themselves. It's like, even when I try to think about it now, it's like, at least I got the distraction of questions, you know. I did it, but I try to be tough, like they're not gonna do anything to me, you know. So it was different, you know.
It seems like over the course of your career, you've kind of struck this balance between doing, you know, great independent films like Crying Game and Ghost Dog, but you also do big studio pictures like Panic Room. Is that sort of a conscious effort on your part, or just the way things have worked out?
Just the way it's flowed, just the things that I've been attracted to. It's like, you know, Crying Game was a great opportunity, and Ghost Dog was a great opportunity. Really, in the material, you know, and we'll see what happens now. But I think a lot of it seems like they're making some more interesting films all over the place. So.
And would you prepare for movies like that, or Last King of Scotland, the same way? Would you approach it with the same seriousness you do something like Phone Booth, for example, which I love, by the way? Yeah. I mean, it just has different requirements. I mean, I played a lot of cops, and so I kind of like have done a lot of research on cops, and like I just needed to talk to interrogator about what he would be thinking a little bit. Because the thing about that movie is shot in 10 days, and you're always on camera, which means that if you don't know what you're doing, then while you're not saying anything and they're over there with him in the conversation, they're still filming you. So a lot of the stuff is improv. You know, like we're over by the car and stuff, and I'm like, so I had to talk to the interrogator to know how would I behave, what would I be asking for, who would I do this, because while he's over there doing that, and I'm supposed to be off camera, I'm really not off camera. I'm over here like, you know, okay, I need a car over here, and send me a car over there, and no, what is the problem with this or that, you know, and I don't want to talk to you, you know, so I have to create all these relationships, you know what I mean, because they're still going on, and so that takes work, but it's a different kind, not as hard. I want to take some questions from the audience, but before I do, I know it's often hard for actors to choose a favorite role. They feel like children. It's like, you know, picking your favorite kid, but is there a role that you personally has a special place in your heart?
Can I pick 3?
Sure. I'm going to say no.
You couldn't. I was like, oh no. I think for me, it's always the moments of a big transition for me, and I think that Bird was the first because I was really frightened. I didn't know, and I had to like learn to trust myself and walk out on a limb, you know, and that taught me about how to approach my work. And then I think actually Ghost Dog, because cool. But because it taught me about silence and about trusting my insights to convey my thoughts, you know, even more. Because like Jim would shoot you and use it in the film, like maybe 3-minute shot of just you driving, you know, and I don't know what I was thinking about, but it taught me a lot about that. And then probably The Last King, because it kind of helped me marry something and understand how to change my vibration a little bit, so that when I change my vibration, that you see me, but you've seen the character maybe a little more, because my vibration is so different. Yeah.
This is a question, I believe it's Pam Rack. Last night in the Golden Globe speech, you mentioned the ancestors whispering in your ear. And she would like to know, how have they helped you in the art or the career or the craft of acting or in the business?
I think that they help me all the time, my work. I think that they guide me. I see that as real. It's a hard question because it's so wrapped up in the way I process my work. I feel that they help me in my life, and I feel that they help guide me to play characters. They've helped me understand that the people that I try to access are real, and help me, and sometimes I feel, touch that thing, person, energy, whatever. It's too abstract an answer for you, and I apologize. I don't know how to put it completely in words.
We have a question from Jay, and I just love the way he worded this, so I have to read it. What was the Oliver Stone experience like for you? Sounds like a carnival ride.
It was great, and it was tough, because they brought us there and they put us in basic training, and they just brought us out to the jungle and made us dig holes, and we had to sleep there for 2 weeks. We weren't allowed to bathe. We were only allowed to eat two rats a day. We were only allowed to sleep 2 hours at night, and at a time, on up for 2, down for 2, for deprivation. And we were constantly under attack by the Filipino Marines. And at times my troop got lost for days in the jungle during training. But the thing was that we were all young, and so it was probably easier for them to get to do that. And also, but it did teach us a lot about the characters, because we would know how to make our food, like with a rat, we know what we don't like, how to do it, how to put it together. If our gun jammed in the scene, we had been so programmed that automatically we'd start taking it apart and putting it back together again. At night, we'd sit there, we didn't have any water, and we're looking at our pictures of our girlfriends, with flashlight and talking, hey, you see her? Wow, like we've been away for a year, but it was tough too, because it was 113, 14 degrees normally every day, and we only were allowed 1 canteen of water. But I think it taught me something too, So I got a lot from it too. So.
I heard you lost a lot of weight on that set, and Oliver Stone was concerned because your character's name was Big Harold.
Yeah, I did lose a lot of weight, but it's like he'd only given us a certain amount of food. And he was just obsessed about it. He's like, well, you're losing too much weight. I'm like, feed me? So what am I going to do,
I hope I pronounced this right. I believe it's Raissa. Wants to know who or what inspires you. Who do you look up to in life?
I guess, I mean, more inspires me now is just mostly, it shifts because it's usually people who are standing up to try to help people. So there's a lot of people, but I have to say that my career has been based on, and I think I'm really impressed by normal people. I know it sounds strange, but that's why I play my characters. I'm impressed about people, looking at the heroic in people I meet that are from normal life. Like people who like are struggling, like a mom who's like raising 2 kids by herself, or a guy who's like working a job and doesn't seem to ever to be able to get forward, but yet like continues to like be nice to me when he's like having to carry this thing down a flight of stairs. I'm more, I admire all the other, but I really admire the sort of extraordinary in ordinary people. I think, probably.
This doesn't actually have a name, but wanted to know, have you ever been concerned about being typecast, or are you concerned now, having just played such an iconic performance?
I think now because everybody's always saying that that's not what I'm normally known for, I don't think that in any way that character is so unique. I mean, then I don't be able to like keep saying play Idi, this character. I've been really fortunate. I believe I've been really blessed because I've got to play so many different kinds of characters. And I think it started when I was young. I was so idealistic that I would be willing to like say nah, and across or a section of luck where you meet across a moment. And so I think that's just going to continue the same way unless I mess it up. I think unless I like screw it up and set myself down a path of I'm only going to play heroes. But I don't think that's going to happen.
Another question without a name. What do you like the most about being an actor, and is there anything you don't like?
I love the fact that I get to continually learn and meet people. I mean, continually grow. It's like I'm a student all the time. I feel like that. I love that. I guess you always wonder if you're going to be able to continue to do it. And it's not like another career where you've been doing it for 20-something years and you feel like, oh, I'm secure now. It's like maybe you're doing it for all this time, and now it's like, oh, well, sorry. Oh, we don't want to see you anymore. Oh, well, and I guess I try not to think about that kind of stuff, but I'm sure. I mean, I think that's a bad part of this, and I think it's part of the cultural that people discard old things. They tear down buildings, or they don't, they want to see the new. Like in some other countries, they like follow their people that they've grown a relationship with, no matter what they do, for years, Whereas here, it shifts, and I think that's not a comfortable thing.
It says, question for the big man. From Maurizio Kane. I hope I got that right. I'm sure a lot of actors are going through this, but before you're a name, how do you kind of push through the harder times, the more negative times from your peers, or maybe even your reps? I don't know if you've always been with management who you feel understands and appreciates you. I know it's hard for a lot of actors to find that.
No, I mean, I changed agents recently, a few years ago, because I couldn't get them to, really push to try to get me to play certain kinds of roles or the kind of roles I wanted to play, to really believe, and so I shifted. And I feel like now I'm with someone who really believes. It's a young agent. He's really young and kind of really, I think, really overtly aggressive. But he like actually seems to care. About what's going on. And it's like, and you didn't wait till this film came out to believe. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He just was like, I know your work. I've seen what you've done. And I'm going to do everything I can do to make you play the roles that you should play. So it's like that, But sometimes you can't understand the temperament of the business and what's going on, and there are reasons why people might not want to hire you or give you the role or whatever. and it's not always just that agent or manager thing, but sometimes it is. At least you want somebody like old school that like you can call up and feel like they actually want to have a conversation, you know. And I'm lucky I have that.
Sort of along those lines, because I think we have a lot of actors here, and this can be such a tough, demanding business. Was there ever a time when you considered doing something else, and how did you sort of get through maybe some of the leaner times?
Yeah, I thought about it for probably more of my career than I didn't. You know, I mean, in the beginning part, I just wasn't sure, you know, if I could do the work right. So I was like, well, what am I going to do? You know, what can I do? What else should I be doing? Is there something else I'm meant to do? You know, it's really kind of a recent phenomenon where I start to feel like, okay, I want to be doing this for good. You know, whereas for good, you know, till I'm like, you know, maybe 60. You know, and then I'm gonna probably go off, write a book or something, or sail the 7 seas.
Can you tell us what you have coming up that you're working on?
Yeah, I did this movie called The Air I Breathe, which I think is gonna be well, you saw it. You saw part
I've seen parts of it. Yeah.
That's more than me. I try to get a director to show it to me.
Well, I have an in, so.
Yeah, it's a movie about like a Chinese parable. It's an ensemble movie with a first-time director named Ji Ho Lee.
And you play happiness.
I play happiness. We all play I play happiness, and Brendan Fraser he plays pleasure, and then there's love, and there's sorrow. Sarah Michelle's sorrow, and Kevin Bacon. It's all about our lives interreacting. I meet pleasure, and then I end up touching sorrow, and then finally I find happiness. And, you know, and I play like a banker who's like frightened of the world. It's one, and then this other one called Vantage Point, which is like a Rashomon kind of action movie, where it's an assassination attempt on the president, and it's from 4 different points of view, the same 15 minutes of time, and I play like a tourist, an accidental tourist, I guess, who has this sort of it's a Buddha tape, because I film it, and I'm finally. I had no life, and now I do, you know.
And of course, I believe you have the title role in Where the Wild Things Are.
No, I play one of the wild things.
One of the wild things. There's more than one.
Yeah. I play. Catherine O'Hara plays my wife, and Paul he plays my kid. We're like a wild. I play Ira. He's the wild thing that puts the holes in the trees.
And I should also mention that American Gun, which you also produced, you received an Independent Spirit Award nomination for.
That's nice.
So maybe you can win some awards not related to Last King of Scotland.
Well, you know what? I hope the director. I mean, I'm really happy for Eric. It's his first movie. It was a first-time director, and the producer too. It was his first movie, and the book got nominated, and it was nominated for 3 awards, not just So I'm really happy for them.
Did he come to you looking for you to produce it, or to star in it, or both?
To help him get it produced, and to act in it. And Marsha Gay Harden was playing a role, and I talked to some people. Then I talked to IFC, and they met with him. We all sat down, and they said they would finance it, and then part of it. And then we were able to get someone else to put some money up. It's a $3 million movie. It's a little small movie, but I think it's a special movie.
And then, of course, we have the SAG Awards coming up. You're nominated for Last King of Scotland.
That's cool.
And after that, and you can let everyone know that the movie is expanding across the country on January 19th.
Yeah.
And then I don't think it's premature to say good luck at the Oscars. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Sure.
Thank you so much. It's such a thrill.
It's a pleasure. Thank you all.